What's up, Pitt fans? Welcome to another edition of the PG Pritt Show brought to you by FanDuel. I'm Stephen Thompson. That's Abby Schnable. We cover Pitt athletics for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And Abby, we just watched a hell of a basketball game here at the Peterson Event Center. Pitt 67-66 over Ohio State. Another Black Friday buzzer beater to beat the Buckeyes for the Panthers. Kind of uncanny that it happens 2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 years in a row to the same team on the same day. I think this one was a little bit different than last year just because of the situation that this Pitt squad has in, coming off of 2 losses. Haven't beaten a power conference opponent yet, and Ohio State's walking in with 6 wins. Granted, most of those are over mid-majors, and the only high major that they had beaten was Notre Dame with 1 point. But, this was a must-win in the sense of morale for the Panthers.
Yeah, it was absolutely a must-win, and the guy who spearheaded the entire thing, I think, is DeMarco Minor, who not only hit that game-winning shot, but also scored, I believe, 18 points. 18 points, has 5 steals as well to lead a really suffocating defensive effort. But talking to him after the game, he also illustrated how him being a leader on this team, not just kind of the floor general in kind of the literal sense being the point guard on this team, but he is an emotional leader for this team, a guy who is well-traveled throughout all levels of college basketball. And, after the loss to Quinnipiac on Sunday, it was DeMarco Minor who really rallied the troops.
Yeah, the way that he, with so many years of experience that he has, he's been in situations probably similar, especially because he hasn't played at this high of a level either, other than Oregon State, which is a high major anymore. Who knows? And so the way that he rallied and talked to the guys to, hype them up for this moment and was great. And then the way that he followed through, I mean, he scored the first 5 points, opens the game on a 3-pointer. And it kind of was almost to me like, oh, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Yeah. He knows that this team can do it. And he's like, watch, guys, I'll show you first. And then it was every time that the one time that he wasn't on the court was when they really struggled in the first half, and obviously the second half was kind of up and down the whole way. But the way DeMarco Minor was controlling the offense, like you said, scoring when needed too, like especially in the second half, he hit some timely shots and the steals, which we'll get into a little bit more later. But he was just, offensively, defensively stout. And it was at a time when Pitt needed it. And I mean, a logo 3 with 2 guys guarding you, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he has a kind of veteran presence that shows up not just in the huddle, in the locker room, off of the court, but in those big moments, in moments like this where the team is kind of backed against a wall when they are desperate. DeMarco Minor has been there for Pitt at every turn, and he really showed it in as clear an example as possible with that final shot. But there is a lot of stuff that goes into what DeMarco does behind the scenes that really leads to those moments like you saw on Friday night at the Pete. He does a little bit of everything on any given game. He can be their leading scorer. He can be one of the best shooters on the team when he's hitting a bunch of threes, but also the defense, like we talk about, that's something that's really consistent for him. Like, it looks deeply unpleasant to play offense against DeMarco Minor. I mean, we can ask Bruce Thornton after the game, and, he was held underneath his scoring average, but he had to work for everything. It was 18 points on 15 shots, and DeMarco Minor was his primary matchup for most of this game. And then you talk about the 5 steals. I mean, part of 13 turnovers that Pitt forced against Ohio State. This was an offense that had averaged 92.5 points per game. They weren't turning the ball over very much. They were shooting threes at an extremely high rate, and Pitt absolutely shut them down, held them to their second lowest scoring total of the season, made everything uncomfortable for the Buckeyes tonight. It was a really tremendous bounce back effort, especially considering how they lost against Quinnipiac.
Yeah, and their 13 turnovers is a season high for them too as well. So it wasn't just that they had so many turnovers, it was their lack of ball control, the worst it's been all season. And, again, DeMarco Minor really spearheaded that. He not only 5 steals, but on 4 different guys. So it wasn't like he was picking off the same guy over and over and over again. He was really crafty. And I think a lot of his defensive plays created, this offense a lot. They had 17 points off of turnovers. And when a game is decided by 1 point, that really, really matters. But, it really started from the defensive end and his ability to not only get his own or get stops on his own, but that intensity rubs off on other people, which led to like you said, just a really solid defensive performance, even though Ohio State was getting their shots for the most part. But they got stops. Pitt got stops when needed, other than that last one down at the other end of the court. But it was great to see the defensive effort, because I'm not sure we've seen that kind of intensity from Pitt this season.
Yeah, and you can attribute it to maybe a little bit of fatigue, like we had written about maybe earlier in the season, but Pitt was able to keep up what Jeff Capel had called a competitive stamina throughout this game. I would also be remiss if we didn't shout out, Cam Corrin and really the entire front court, because it was a collective effort between Barry Dunning, Roman Siulepa. The work they did on Christoph Tilley, who had been, scoring north of 16 points per game. Pitt got a little bit lucky because, another 16-point per game scorer, I believe that's John Mosley, suffered an injury in the first half, wasn't able to play in the second half. So that did help them a little bit, but Pitt was really stout around the board and played connected, in Barry Dunning's words, defensively. And that was what led to all of the turnovers, the defense around the rim, the ability to hold Tilley under his scoring average, well under his scoring average, make him work for everything. I mean, the only reason Ohio State got back into this game is because of their 13 second half free throws. And They made all of them, and credit to them for doing that. They created those opportunities, but they were not getting easy shots inside or outside of the arc. And that's a credit to Pitt's defense.
Yeah, a lot of their threes either happened because Pitt had decided to double team Tilley almost unnecessarily. So there were some open threes that they got. But, a good chunk of those threes came with a Pitt player right in front of them, and they just either stepped out or faked them or whatever it was. Pitt was there. Pitt was in their faces when they were running man-to-man. They were really, efficient with it. When they started to switch things up, maybe things got a little bit shaky. But the fact that they were able to hold this team, 30 points below their scoring average is very impressive. And, it's one game, so don't read too much into it. But if they can build off of this performance, that bodes well for upcoming games.
And like you said, Abby, it's one game. And this was a game that, maybe externally, I think the betting lines, at least according to our friends at FanDuel, were around 4.5, 5 points. Ohio State was favored. I think Ken Palm had this at about a 5-point win for Ohio State, at least as far as predictive metrics go. But I think internally, among Pitt fans, among you and I, we did not expect this kind of a performance outside of this Pitt team. That final shot, irregardless of that, we did not expect Pitt to, be as competitive as they were in this game. And Pitt knew that. I think Pitt knew what was being said about their team externally. DeMarco Minor said so explicitly. So this team's ability to kind of cut out the noise, or maybe use the noise to their advantage, I guess, and fuel them a little bit, was really impressive. And so one game, but an electric moment. It felt like kind of the old Pete again. It felt like, with a good crowd in here, they were active and engaged the whole game. And then that roar at the end of the game was special. It felt good for Pitt to, I guess, show some proof of confidence to win a game against a good basketball team, which I think Ohio State is, in a way that they had maybe drawn out when the season began. They wanted to be a defensive team. They wanted to own the rebounding and be better in that sense as well. And so for them to kind of get some proof of confidence, proof of concept, and then to actually be rewarded with a win was really huge.
Yeah, what I think I really liked is, after the Quinnipiac game, Jeff Capel, Barry Dunning, and Roman Siulepa were just talking about how there was no energy, there was no fight, there was no intensity. And you mentioned it earlier with the UCF game that when they got down, they started to struggle. It's almost like when things start not going their way, they don't know what to do. But that was not the case today. They had so much fight. I mean, I think back to when Ohio State made it 16-15 in the first half, rattles off a 9-0 run right after that to go up, be up by 10 at halftime, which is huge. And then even though they didn't start off the second half very well, they had built up that lead, which was a little bit of a cushion, and then they were chipping away, which you got to give credit to Barry Dunning. Only 4 points in the first half, and he was making the shots when needed. Of Pitt's final 14 points, he had 7 of them, and just really opened the door to keep Pitt in this game. And you just saw the fight, even though when they're down by 2 points with 3 seconds left, they didn't stop. Every team's going to go for the shot, but there was this palpable feeling that Pitt was fighting it for it. The fans knew. All of them were on their feet. I don't think any of us were expecting the shot to go in per se, but that is one of the loudest, responses I've seen from the Pete in a Pitt game. And when you see your players fighting, that hypes everyone up. And if Pitt can carry this and keep the intensity, keep the fight, again, it puts them into a good position, because, at least they're not going to give up because they have that.
I look at Barry Dunning. He scored, I think, 2 straight buckets late in the second half, and he was so fired up about them. Like, he was yelling at the crowd. He was flexing with his teammates. And then, later in the game, in those final seconds, Cam Corrin, who missed 5 free throws in the second half, he hits 2 with ice in his veins to tie the game. Amari Witherspoon makes another 2 to help put them in position for that final shot by DeMarco Minor. Those are the signs of growth. Those are the signs of kind of some increasingly steely nerves from a young team that I think you really hope to see as they progress through the season and you maybe build towards something more later in the year. So a good win for Pitt. It's one win, but a really nice night at the Peterson Event Center and a much needed win for this Pitt team. We thank you all for tuning in with us on PG Pitt on YouTube. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, follow all of our written work at post-gazette.com. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we will be back talking about Pitt, Miami, breaking down whatever happens in that one, whether the Panthers' ACC championship hopes are alive or not. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
Woohoo!